Bench Opinions. Three idiots with amateur analysis.
Welcome to Bench Opinions, our rugby episode of the week. Welcome to another week. If you're seeing the big shoe on my leg and you're wondering what happened, you can tune into our What a Week episode, which comes out later in the week, where I discuss my new fashion.
There you go.
Yeah. But today we'll be talking about rugby, and only rugby.
Yes.
Exclusive rugby.
URC semi-finals took place on the weekend. Leinster beating Glasgow and the Bulls beating the Sharks.
Mm-hmm.
Gone to form?
Yes. I mean, those are the teams that we expected to get through the semi-finals, and the teams that we expected to also get to the play in the finals in Dublin. And thankfully, in the second game, which was Poise against Sharks, the Sharks, for a little while, looked like they might have the upper hand. Deciding to turn it on for a change, and I was a little bit nervous for like 20 minutes.
I think we would have gotten the full fucking shebang there, because we're in an interesting spot now as a podcast in our social media presence, because
Everybody hates you when you're on top.
we've reached a point where we have the Irish are always against us. And now we've reached a weird point where South Africans are weirdly against us, and it's
Even questioning where we come from, which is stupid.
Well,
like,
I mean,
how do you not think we're South African?
but it's because we don't sound like the South Africans they know.
No, but now what must I speaking like then? Or,
Like that.
I can give you a multitude of different accents.
Yeah, it was. It's a bit strange because they're also they're not Sharks fans. When we criticized the Sharks last week,
Rightfully so.
rightfully,
Because
so.
they are... Anyway, the thing, what I like is that, this proves that our fucking podcast, we're after the truth. And we are willing to ride every storm that includes a shitstorm to get to the truth. And it's a pleasure.
Yeah, and the Sharks were terrible this season, and thankfully, like Klaus said, the semi-final proved that again, but not as much. They actually played a little bit better than they did in previous weeks. Let's go into the other game first, though.
Yeah.
Leinster versus Glasgow. I think Leinster pretty comfortably winning it.
37-19, I think was the score. Let me just double check. But
Yeah. Did you watch the game, Dom?
No, I did watch the highlights though, and I've seen a lot of the sort of fallout afterwards in terms of a couple of the talking points.
for me, the weird one was, they played so well against the Stormers the previous week, and they played with Jordan at 10. But for this week, they decided to go with Jordan at 12, I think it was. Somewhere in the centre pairing, I think he was either 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And they had Hastings at 10.
Yeah.
And I just thought that the team was not well managed.
Yeah.
And then Hastings actually went off, and Jordan then slotted in as 10. And then they started playing a lot better, but it was too little too late. Leinster's just too strong. And even if you look at their bench, if you bring on the likes of like an Ergia Sneeman, they've got a powerful bench as well. So they didn't let up, put it that way.
No, they sort of almost returned to form, Leinster, after like a, let's say, iffy
The wobble.
little
speed
wobble,
yeah.
if you can even call it that. But in the end, winning it comfortably. We were wondering why Ergia Sneeman doesn't start for Leinster, and I thought he must have been injured, because he's definitely one of their best players, or had been up until a few weeks or months ago.
I think this is a bit of the product, I think, of maybe trying to get out of the pattern of previous years where they've fallen short, and like rotating players, and also bringing on someone like Ergia to kind of really get the game across the line.
Right.
In the second half is my prediction. I think also, the fact that they dipped and have come back now, and it's obviously been better that they dipped and have roared back. I think it's just also very clear sign of how difficult it is to kind of motivate and get a set of players through a season when you're so dominant. I think it's very difficult because you're constantly trying to dangle carrots, and how do you stay up in it, particularly with the ebbs and flows of the URC as well, with like, then all of a sudden you've got half the players playing Six Nations, they come back, all that kind of stuff. I think it is quite difficult. So I think in that sense, maybe that's kind of the move of Nienaber to kind of try and...
Not Nienaber.
Not Nienaber.
Is not their head coach.
Who's he?
Leo Cullen.
Yeah, we were both baffled at that. We thought he was there. He's a senior coach for
He's a
them.
senior
Okay.
coach, yeah.
Anyway, well, I mean, he would have been part of the decision-making team. It's not like he's not there. I've got a shock at a second, like thinking, like, what? Anyway, him, like whoever the coaching staff of Leinster, I think it's them trying to make decisions that maybe fall out of like this kind of, okay, we're going to play our team, and if it doesn't, I don't know. I guess.
So do you think that it's something like we think we're probably going to win the game and get to the finals, so we want to have Eric's name a little bit rested?
I struggle to believe that there's that level of arrogance. I think it's game management as opposed to them being like, we're going to rest someone.
So he's like a small bomb squad.
Yeah, essentially,
on his
yeah.
own,
It's like having players on the bench that can very clearly influence the game, and I think Achi is also someone that kind of would definitely fall into that and understand his role, given the fact that he's part of the bomb squad for the box. I think it's definitely part of that kind of thinking pool.
So next week he starts on the bench again?
No, I don't think so.
I will be honest and say I'm not sure who are the other locks. Who's been playing in their stead, because they clearly haven't missed him. They didn't miss him last week or the week before when he hasn't been starting. It could be that he's also coming back from a small niggle.
I just think the only reason I say I don't think he starts on the bench next week is I think because you have to start your best team in the final.
Yeah.
I think that's like. But yeah, I mean, again, it's all guesswork, but that kind of makes sense to me with the context of them kind of falling short the last few years.
Yeah.
That they've looked to do a bit more game management, looked to kind of influence the game in the vital moments, and I guess where you're probably most vulnerable to slip up is also in a semi-final, I guess, where it seems like a relatively easy task, but you need to still get it over the line. And Glasgow are a good side. I mean, they're defending champions, so I think. Yeah. I think you feel comfortable having someone like Ache on for the last quarter of a game to kind of help you get it across the line.
A master player for Leinster was Sheehan.
Yeah.
He's just absolutely killing it at Leinster, and I think he's going to continue to do the same at British and Irish Lions level and
a very good game
at Islands level.
In the British and Irish Lions context, Ferguson getting injured, he's out of the Lions side.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, which is pretty sad for him.
Yeah.
And definitely, I saw the name that was called up for the props, but it's definitely a massive blow to the prop setup of the British and Irish Lions.
What do we think of Glasgow's season, all in all?
I think generally they had a good season. I think towards the end they started to peter off a little bit, whereas the middle part of their season was a little bit stronger. Obviously defending champions from last year, so I think there's a little bit of pressure there. But then if you look at the way they finished, I think it got quite lucky for the Sharks to have finished where they finished, which obviously bumped Glasgow into the sort of section of the table where it meant that they will have to face against Leinster in Dublin, which I think is always going to be a tough challenge. So I still think they're a good team, and I think they could have made it to the finals if
they'd been on the other side of the draw.
If luck had gone another way, and they would have been on the other side of the draw.
Yeah.
Some interesting comments though from the coach of Glasgow, talking about him saying like this is a great season for Glasgow. They put up a good fight, but what are we expecting against a team that has 10 times the budget of any other team in the URC?
Yeah,
I think it's a cop out. To be honest, I think it is what it is. Interesting talking point, but I don't think that's the kind of time to do it. Is right after you lose a game. I don't think you lose. Anyway, I guess it plays a big role in you losing the game because they have such a great squad. But it's going to be interesting to see how the URC addresses this, because from what I see, it is factually true that Leinster have 10 times the budget of a lot of the other teams.
But Leinster have never won the URC on the other hand either. So
sure. But I think looking backwards is one thing. I think we can all admit that Leinster should have, and they've choked. So there's strength there. But I think looking forward, it will be interesting to see how the URC kind of. How you tackle this, I suppose.
What do you mean with the way that prize money or TV money is?
I guess so, yeah. Or maybe you see a similar model now get introduced in Wales, since they're sort of they're cutting one team and trying to pool more resources with Cardiff, possibly. Yeah. If they go a similar route.
We have the same almost with the Sharks being just way richer than the other franchises in South Africa.
True. I think the criticism of Leinster though is that it's so controlled by the Irish Rugby Union, and that it's kind of like an acceptance by that they're like, cool, we want our best players playing in Leinster, and we're going to give them the most resources. That I think is the criticism, the veiled criticism. Okay. Whereas in South Africa, it's just a commercial issue. Like the Sharks have the biggest foreign investment, and that's the way it is.
Yeah, I think if you're a Lions fan, like the two of you are, you can feel pretty aggrieved, because that's usually what happens to you guys. If there's ever a guy that comes, you can see it with Adwil van der Merwe, who knocks on Springbok doors, he immediately gets poached by one of the other three unions, and it's becoming more and more that it's the Sharks, just because they have the deepest pockets. But what we're seeing now is that the Sharks players who go through there, who aren't maybe finding their feet or the success, get fed back into. I don't think the Lions as much, but the Bulls and the Stormers. With Mchunu coming to the Stormers next year, I think it's just natural that the amount of players they buy and the amount of players that come through their academy, there'll always be drop off, and then you have to sort of feed off the scraps and still try and compete. Should we go to the other semi-final? Bulls versus Sharks at Loftus. Seemed like a great atmosphere in the stadium.
47,000 people, yeah.
Nice, very good.
Really, really full stadium, which is really nice to see.
Comparative to a very underwhelming numbers at the Aviva. That was one big talking point after the game as well, that they didn't even sell enough tickets to even talk about opening the top tier. Another point of criticism, people asking how can it be, you know, what leads to this, which is, I mean, I can't answer the question, but it is definitely an interesting talking point.
Having seen the prices for international rugby, it'd be interesting to see what the prices are for club rugby.
I actually saw a breakdown of the prices for tickets, and I think your most expensive ticket's like 99 euros.
Okay.
In the premium tickets, so it's definitely not. It's not the pricing, that's for sure.
Yeah, okay.
So big massive question marks there.
I wonder if there's a fatigue of watching live rugby when it's not a final that has hit Leinster, because they've been in so many big matches with the European Championship that they've been in, and probably gearing up for a final that they're sort of almost saying we'll wait for them to be in the final, because we also have to say that Loftus in the past hasn't sold out necessarily either.
Or you maybe Leinster just need to not be that aspirational yet. Like, rather just keep selling out your regular stadium.
Yeah,
you know.
I think the final. I don't think the final will actually be at the Viva. I think I read somewhere that it'll be at Croke Park, but I'm not 100% sure.
Either way, that's a lot of seats to sell out. I mean, like Croke
is.
Park's even bigger than Aviva. I think Aviva's about 65,000.
Yeah, but I could be wrong on that. So let me not spread false rumors.
It'll also be interesting to know if there's anything else happening in the sports calendar in Ireland at the moment.
I mean,
Could
they're
be
always
hurling,
fucking
or it could
hitting
be-
something at each other, or fucking playing football with their hands and shit like that. So
The Bulls, in the end, I wouldn't say won comfortably. They beat the Sharks. The Sharks were in it. I think needed to score a few points in like the 60th. Missed out on a few opportunities there. What did you think of the game?
I think the Sharks were in it because they were playing against 12 men.
Very poor discipline.
I don't know what
by the
happened there
Bulls.
with the Bulls, but they collectively had a brain fart and decided, let's collect some yellow cards. All of them went to the bin. I think it was Foster, Cameron Hanekom, and Coetzee.
I think so, yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
Although a little bit indicative of the season of the Bulls, because I think those three were their 15th, 16th, and 17th yellows of the season, which seems like a shit ton of yellow cards.
Yeah.
It's definitely something you'd have to address before a final, because I
That'll
think
cost you
you
a
need
game,
to keep your 15 men on the field when you play against Leinster.
Yeah.
For Hanekom and Coetzee, I can understand why they've maybe accumulated so many yellow cards over the season, because they are jackling threats. So they're probably going in for like risky things that can sometimes be deemed 50-50, and then sometimes it's just going to go your way, sometimes it's not going to go your way. Foster was a bit of an interesting one. He kind of like tackled, and as he was rolling off the player, kind of also like ripped the ball out of his hand on the ground. So he got a cynical yellow card for that. But obviously the fact that all three of them happened within, I think, 20 minutes or 22 minutes of one another is obviously not beneficial, which brought the Sharks back into the game, only in the sense that the Bulls didn't have any opportunity to score. The Sharks didn't really capitalize on that lack of defensive line. Not
as well as they should have.
Definitely.
I know when we were watching it live, Klaus was criticizing that they didn't go wide. And you could count the players on the screen, and I think there must have been like 8 or 9 of them, of the Bulls players, in picture, meaning that on the outside there was only 2 more. No, that's wrong.
I think there was like 10 guys we counted.
10 guys in the picture, and then there was like two or three more
guys. They were covering like,
and the
60%
Sharks
of the other half
didn't
of
go
the field.
wide.
It was a strange, particularly the first half was very strange, because the Bulls had such crazy dominance at scrum time.
Yeah.
And yet the Sharks still managed to keep the ball and kind of had a lot of territory, even, it felt like, through large phases. But as you said, execution terrible. I think Jaden Hendricks, we need to start talking. He was terrible again.
He needs to get his studs
didn't
checked.
have a great
How
game.
often did that guy
Him
slip?
and his brother,
Him and
his mom bought him them shoes at the wrong place, bro. They were both slipping and sliding all over the
Yes.
place. They've got those Mr. Price Max Edge.
Jordan missed a few kicks. One also
Yeah,
has
that
to
was
say. I
really
think he
bad.
missed
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
or three kicks,
At least three, yeah.
which I think because they were all penalties, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, there was definitely 3 penalties he missed. Yeah,
and that also changes the
dynamic
Just the
for sure.
mindset and
The
the
mindset
yeah,
and
motivation. Yeah.
the scoreboard. I mean,
Particularly because it felt like every time he missed a kick, the Bulls went up the other and scored a try.
Yeah.
So it was like, it felt like a double whammy. Ironically, if you look in a team, against a team like the Sharks, packed full of like big names, it was the individual performances of Bulls players, I find, that actually got them across the line. You know, Sebastian de Klerk at left wing had an absolute barnstormer of a game.
storm of a game.
Creel again, you know, like it seems like all these dudes that just narrowly missed out on getting into that box squad kind of put their hands up, which bodes well for the Springboks because it's good. We want people knocking on the door. But that front row of the Bulls, that scrum, particularly the first half, was unbelievable.
Vocalo, hey.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
that
just
guy
don't
can-
forget who they're scrumming against either, you know?
Yeah.
They're
Ox-
scrumming against
Bongi and Vincent
the
Goff.
World Cup winning front row, you
Yeah.
know? And
The Sharks did bring their scrum back in the second half,
Yeah.
and but that was, I think, when the Bulls had already done quite a bit of damage.
Yeah.
Who are the standout players on the Shark side for you? Considering it's a team that are not in sync. Like some guys stood up.
I thought Ethan Hooker had an okay game.
Yeah,
I thought Apelele Fassi had an okay game, claimed a few high balls.
Yeah.
And I think Andre Esterhazen's always going to give you like at least a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
But other than that,
had an absolute
I'm
everything.
I'm struggled.
Then there's been
but the same as Villy Leroux. Villy Leroux also on the other end for the Bulls also didn't have a good game at all.
Yeah.
No.
And those are the sort of calm heads that you need to get you over the line in games like this.
Massive hole in the lock pairing with Eben not being there because I don't even know what the Oak's name was who came on. He tried his best, but was often not. He's just, you can't compare. It's like it's such a pity for them. They also obviously missed Jenkins as well. So they're like the 2 behemoths at in the lock positions were not playing. And I think that's telling as well. But it's a house of cards that you would expect it's a house of cards that should be more stable with the kind of squad they have. But it's a house of cards that didn't really stay stable, unfortunately.
For me, a standout players for the Sharks are also the Chuchuka brothers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Who
true.
you're going to now see in
True.
the Springbok squad.
Very
hopefully.
exciting.
Manu
They
really
just do not stop. They just keep on
Yeah.
going and keep on going.
Manu, funny enough, actually had, even though Vincent, I think, is sort of the guy that's maybe just ahead in the pecking
he's
order.
the starter,
Yeah, but-
Emmanuel always comes off the bench.
Yeah, but Manu had a great game. He came on, he made an early steal coming on in that second half early on. So he looked good. He had a couple of good ball carries as well. Yeah.
And then standout players for the Bulls, except for Sebastian de Klerk, who we've already discussed.
I think any one of the front row you could probably pick, but I also thought Goosen had a good game.
You did?
I thought he had a good game.
I thought he was terrible.
His kicking was good.
That's it. The rest of it, I thought his decision making was poor. I thought his passing was poor. I didn't think he had a good game at
Really?
all. I was very happy to see him leave the field.
Fucking hell.
Ambrose Papier.
I actually think Villy should start at 10. I thought they played better. I think the Bulls generally played better when Villy was starting at 10 than Goosen.
I can't say that I felt either way about Goosen, but I think Ambrose Papier had a great game at times. He was really electric.
Kenny Moody.
He seemed like the X factor. Kanan seemed to have a good game as well.
Why don't we do this? Okay, we move.
Here we go.
Okay, leave Villy at fullback.
Moody plays
I
fucking
think-
fly off.
I think Villy at fullback gives you a lot in terms of like analysis and sort of reading the game, assists, everything he does well for the Springboks. What's their inside center called?
Foster?
No, the one who also kicks.
Creel.
Creel.
He played outside center.
Outside center. We move him to 10, and then we bring Kanan Moody to 13.
I think that's for a final. That's a bit. How would you say it? Crazy.
I don't know if Creel even plays 10 that often.
No.
I think he kicks, but I don't think he plays 10.
Okay, let's talk about the final coming up.
By the way, one more other really good solid performer, and he's someone that does it regularly, is Ruan Nokia. Had a great game.
Yeah.
He had
Got a
really
bit of
good
a head injury there.
Yeah.
But
Before
he
we go to
managed
the
come
final,
back.
maybe let's quickly talk about Hanekom getting injured.
Pity. Yeah, I've tried to look for some news on him. No news yet.
Yeah.
But it seems like with them calling, with finally calling Evan Roos which a lot of people called for, into the squad. I think it's ominous.
Oh, the way he was fucking sucking on
The morphine
pipe means that was a bad one.
No, but also, if you have the opportunity to suck on a morphine pipe, then do it.
The two paramedics who picked me up didn't bring a morphine pipe.
Actually, when I saw that, I was like, I'm sure Maxi wishes he had this.
Oh, because Aaron Rodgers, the football player, also fucking ruptured his Achilles there, and that dude was fucking sucking on some morphine when it happened.
Yeah.
I think for what it looked like, I think they call it a hyperextension of the knee.
Okay.
And it's just, he essentially got tackled here and sort of pushed the knee backwards.
You just hope that there's no ligament damage or shit there,
Yeah.
but I will see, I guess.
It's a pity because I think he was really teed up to be.
He was the player I was most excited to see in the Springbok setup.
Luckily, and this is a bit strange, but luckily, 23 years old, underwhelming winter of rugby against Italy and Georgia. So hopefully, hopefully he's ready for the November test matches and gets another round.
For the rugby championship.
But maybe those are just the opponents you need to get
Sure, I mean,
I
would prefer him to play, but I think
if you look at the Springbok squad that's been selected, there's a lot of people who need easy games just to gain some experience. But we'll get enough chances to talk about the Springboks. Let's talk about the final. Can the Bulls upset Leinster and keep the Leinster voodoo alive?
So the last time the Bulls travelled to Dublin, they did beat Leinster, which proves that they can do it. And I think the Bulls have obviously proven to be a better knockout tournament team. Yeah. That being said, I feel in my gut that Leinster, we need to now put everybody straight in terms of this voodoo magic that's around us and the bad sort of the run that they've had in knockout tournament. And I feel like bringing the likes of an Arius Neyman into the squad, bringing the likes of Geordie Barrett into the squad, I think it's bringing people in that know how to win knockout games. Yeah, and I think they're going to be relied on heavily for calmness and structure and just get the job done and don't worry about flashy play. Yeah.
I think Leinster are well and truly the favourites, and I also expect them to do it. But I think there's three big factors for me. The first factor is something we didn't mention speaking about the Glasgow Leinster game is Prendergast. He was fucking terrible against Glasgow. His tackling stats were terrible.
Right.
He was really not good.
I really need to work on my match analysis because I thought Goosen was good. I thought Prendergast was okay, but I'm clearly watching.
I also thought Prendergast was good.
So from the fallout I didn't watch the game. Okay. I've seen a lot of it on sort of online, and people are really, really shocked at how bad Prendergast's tackling is. And his they spoke about his tactical kicking as well, saying that he's just, as someone who's essentially the next long-term 10 for Ireland, or at least people wish him to be, he was not good. Okay. So that's the first factor. And I think in a final, your fly half is you want him dictating play, I think.
Right.
So that's the first factor for me. Second factor is the dominance of the Bulls at scrum time against the Sharks. If they can replicate that, going into final rugby, again, we've learned it as South African rugby fans, your scrum can win you, I wouldn't argue games, it can win you World Cups from time to time. I think that's a key factor.
You're turning a knock-on into a penalty.
Exactly. So if they can target him there. And then what was my third point going to be? Oh, Jake White is my third point.
Okay.
I believe that the Bulls are the best coach team in South Africa. And as you said, in knockout rugby, and I think Jake White, out of all the coaches from the South African franchise, I feel he's the one guy that understands it's about getting a result in a final. Yeah. And those are kind of the three factors that make me think, okay, if they can target Prendergast, or Prendergast maybe doesn't show up, if their dominance at scrum time is as good, it's obviously a lot of if, buts, and maybes, and Jake White can turn them into a team that knows how to win a final, then they can give it a good go.
Yeah. They need to keep their cards down.
Yeah.
Like they can't do what they did against the Sharks and expect to still win it, especially against Leinster.
I mean, we talk about the Leinster, the monkey on their shoulder. The Bulls have a similar one.
I was going to say, they've been in three finals, is it? Well, this will be their
third final. They've lost two finals. So we'll have a new URC champion, that's for sure. But I think the pressure on the Bulls is not as big as it is on Leinster.
I would agree, yeah.
They are underdogs going into this game. I think
The Bulls.
The Bulls.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess it just depends on which Bulls side rocks up on the day. And I don't know if it's necessary that they have to keep them contained early on. But Leinster remind me a little bit of like when the Springboks played New Zealand. There was sometimes there's phases where if you're not tight enough, they'll score 18 or 20 in like matter of, and then it's very difficult for you to come back into the game. By the time you're sort of back on track, focused again, the game's already out of your hands. So I think that's the one thing that the Bulls, I guess under Jake White, shouldn't let happen to them, but can happen to anyone.
I think interesting matchups are definitely going to be the wingers.
Yeah.
James Lowe against either Kenan Moody or Sebastian Clerc. I think James Lowe plays 11, right?
Yeah.
So he'll be going up against Kenan Moody.
Kenan Moody.
Both of them good under the high ball.
Good on, yeah.
James Lowe is an absolute beast of a specimen. So
They went to that quite a
interesting.
lot in the Sharks Bulls game. A
Up
lot,
and unders,
both teams.
Yeah.
I wonder if that'll be continued in the game on the weekend.
Depends on the conditions, right? If it's rainy conditions, which it very well could be. I think.
I know the Bulls game was wet, so they had been having some rain that morning. I think.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
and it was dewy as well because it's obviously winter down there now and
Yeah.
up in the Highford. So I think that's why. I think. Dublin. In fact, the chances of rain in Dublin are
99%.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a very intriguing one because I think the natural sort of how do you assert dominance over Leinster? I think that's the problem. How do you where are the real kinks in the armor?
Yeah.
If they have the ball, you're going to have a big problem. But how do you get the ball? It sounds stupid, but they're just so dominant, and they're such a multifaceted team as well. You know, like you go through phases sometimes where they are great for, like the Springboks, for example. 9 times out of 10 we have a great forward pack. So the sort of go-to players is like just, you know, that rumble grumble. But like with Leinster, you really feel like it could come from anywhere.
Yeah.
And even someone like Ergia is able to do things that a lot of locks can't do.
This is offloading like
Yeah.
Sonny Bill Williams.
And Barrett is, in that sense, also an X Factor player that I think is a little bit outside of the mold of what you tend to see.
Yeah.
So I think that's the problem. And I think the Bulls have to manage the game, but how do you manage Leinster?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one. If we take our South African roots out of this and look at this as just the most neutral observers ever and have to give a prediction, what are we predicting?
You've got to go with Leinster. It's a home final. They don't have to travel.
Yeah.
That's going to have I think massive influence on it. And I can't remember, but I don't think they lost any players to injury. Whereas I think losing Hanekom is a very influential player for the Bulls. So I don't even know who they're going to put in as 8th man.
Probably, yeah, probably. I wonder if, maybe Van Staden, but he's more of a 6, right?
He came on the weekend.
He came on the weekend,
so he
yeah.
might start, and he's some player actually.
Yeah.
So I don't know. They will probably move Coetzee Van Staden around somehow and sort of someone who's obviously going to have to slot in there. The forward pack is an international pack there as well. You know, they've got the likes of, like, we were talking about how good Sheehan was.
Yeah.
Unreal. You know, he's going to be up against Grobler, I assume. You've got Andrew Porter, who's going to be up against Volko Low.
Big scrums,
it's going to be big scrums. So there's no chance they're going to have dominance the way that they had over the Sharks.
No.
So,
So you're going Leinster.
I'm going Leinster.
Dom?
I said watch the Bulls all season. You know,
You did.
I'm going to, and I'm just doing this for the sake of, but I think the Bulls sneak it.
Okay.
I genuinely believe there's a good enough chance for the Bulls to possibly sneak it. And I think in the context of Leinster, maybe having that monkey on their back and there's so much noise around it as well, though. That's the crazy thing as well, right? It's like you can try and do a lot as a coach or as a team to try and shake that monkey, but I don't believe they have.
No.
And I do think there is an ability there is a possibility of Leinster dropping performances, and I think with fine margins you could exploit it. So I'm going to go Bulls by 3, just
sneaking it
snake
by.
of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm also going to go with Leinster. I think it's just a bridge too far, but would be happy to be wrong. Do you think you two can watch the game on Saturday, or will it be tough?
Oh, we'll find a pub somewhere.
No, it'll be. I
And
think.
what time is the kickoff?
It's
Oh,
at
it's usually
6 p.m. here, so it's 5 p.m. That's as the cricket finishes. So
We'll find somewhere.
it'll be touch and go.
We'll
for
maybe
you guys.
catch the second half. That would be really nice, actually.
Yeah.
I'm watching my phone.
Yeah. Anything else rugby related you guys want to add?
No, not
Did
right
you
now.
see Andre Pollard's kick to who's the
Brilliant.
winger?
Yeah.
Yes, but he
Leicester.
definitely he overhit that.
Bit
thing.
of Jonty Rhodes there
Yeah.
from the winger.
You'll have to watch it for
Yeah,
Leicester
brilliant.
Tigers.
Leicester versus Bath or what?
Was it?
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
just
It
above.
was a Premiership final, right?
Cross kick, and he fucking shinned it,
Yeah.
overkicked it by
Oh, no.
too much, and you can see after he kicks it, he goes, "Oh shit!"
And
the winger pulls
like,
out.
goes full horizontal.
Yes,
Catches it and scores.
scores.
Really?
Yeah.
Kind of like
Saved
that
him.
Tyrone Green. Do you remember that Tyrone Green try for Harlequins?
No,
Can't say I do know.
We also cross kick. Superman dives in the corner. Man just put it down.
Just maybe a good thing to mention is Pollard and how unfucking believably brilliant he's been for Leicester,
Yeah.
and how he's like a fine wine.
yeah,
It bodes really well for the Springboks.
For the love of rugby, they talk about him all the time.
Yeah.
About like the calmness that he brings to the team.
He's so
He's just
good.
like he exudes so much confidence.
Yeah.
He's just like, guys, give me the ball, I'll do it.
yeah,
And even if he doesn't do it, he's just like, guys, I'll do it the next time. It's fine.
it's nuts.
And
Yeah.
so that gives everybody so much confidence.
Long may it continue.
100%.
Right.
Is he coming? He's coming back to the Bulls as
To the
well.
Bulls, yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So next season.
Maybe just a year too late. Fuck. Leave now. Come.
Dom's gonna say, "Watch the Bulls."
Yeah.
Watch now.
Watch the
He's
Bulls.
not going to shut up about it.
Listen, if the Bulls, there's going to be one person on this couch that's going to be smug as fuck
If the Bulls win.
the Bulls win, and you're looking right at him.
Right. Can't wait for that. Thank you very much for tuning in. You can expect a World Test Championship episode tomorrow. We're doing a little special just previewing the big game coming up. And then there's What a Week to look for at the end of the week.
But in the meantime, let us know who you think is going to win and
Yep.
by how much.
Thank you very much.
Watch the Bulls.
Just bye.